there's an element to the outdoors, then there's an element to the outdoors which is somehow connected to items which are unknown and unspeakable and unsound and such things. If you have the nicest office that you could conceive of, it is not comparable necessarily to being able to step out into the outdoors and connect the antennas into the rest of the world's pipelines of differing directions for differing energies to be able to make their ways around, and you must be able to follow those energies from one side to the other, and there is no bounds, there is no energies from the outside and the outdoors, so all the pipelines, they're crossed over, and this is all an invisible network that happens all beneath the surface, like x-rays, like x-ray vision, or like infrared vision in essence. But it's pipelines connecting all people and all energies to each other. It's infinity that you're experiencing, and it's very strange and peculiar. So why actually working outside is advised. DINKY TehC and Change for Game Studios. Welcome to the news. DINKY TehC and Change for Game Studios is a brand that's trying to connect sounds, in essence, and frequencies and such things to different brands like Supreme, like the brand Supreme does. They do collaborations in essence, but we're trying to do that with like sounds and business music basically. So we're just trying to get kind of lost in this podcast for a while, doing this podcast for a while, so that in essence it's kind of like taking time off from sound making and actually making sounds and such things. So getting focused and refocused and backwards and forwards and frontwards and getting flipped over and sideways and backwards and front is an intentional almost activity to be able to get flipped over on one side, to be able to forget about music almost altogether, to one day be able to try to meet again, and then flip flop flippity flop to be able to make music somehow, like an expression, like not like a spurt, like a volcano in essence, like being able to push different energies in, like to the space where they get to a place where they heat up, and then they spurt out of a spout in essence, like it's like steam coming out of a small spout, like a little hole. And that is kind of like what we're trying to do in essence with this podcast, combined with sound making and business music all at the same time, because sound making is chaotic, is meant to be chaotic, and the sounds from making sounds are meant to be chaotic, as well as clothing, as well as like partnerships such as the brand Supreme does in essence. But we want to make all the weirdest of all those things, like sound from punk rock combined with electronic dance music, combined with rap music in essence as like the foundation in essence, but like beyond that, collaborations and energy and vibrations that connect with the essence of like Soho and NYC in New York City, and like also Central Park, and all these different items and energies that come from different places and spaces that shoot out to the rest of the world as well, because there's different representatives from different aspects of the world as well that come and visit. And so there's a little bit of a reverb energy that sort of reflects upon itself and back and forth, electricity that's bouncing off of itself like itself is looking in the mirror type of a thing. And that's the kind of energy that we're trying to produce before actually trying to get back into sound making in essence, before making music again necessarily. And it's like unknown stuff, because like today, for example, we were just doing a lot of communication and trying to develop foundational energy, and we actually sparked communication, like initial communication with the public about the podcast in of itself. It was the first time actually telling anybody about the podcast from the day one, outside of natural organic distribution, which I did not do except for a little bit of posting here and there in the past beneath these 100 episodes, a little bit more than 100 episodes of the DINKY TehC and Nature of Love podcast that has been running for a little while now, a few days, but we're trying to keep it consistent and consecutive, like it's news, like it's something that like now there's like a foundation for, a slight foundation for the news, and like a little bit of a context and such things. So like trying to bring context to other people in the outside world and the elements, and trying to bring them together to a whole, like making the circle a little, like trying to complete a circle in essence is a little bit difficult, if you want, in all honesty, because it seems a little bit unfamiliar, and the unfamiliarity is a significant ongoing connection element and an attempt in essence to be able to spark the liveliness and livelihood and stokedness within all human beings in essence, to be able to try to reach human beings, and as opposed to making flyers and such, actually communicating and speaking hand to hand, or mouth to mouth, like outside, like eye to eye and such things, like speaking like outside, to be able to just chit chat, to be able to try to give a little insight on the fly, on the move, when people are passing by. In essence, it's a difficult task, it's peculiar, it's interesting, and today was the first time I've ever actually tried to do that, and so it just kind of happened for like, I don't know, a few minutes and such things, but nonetheless it was kind of a spark. It was a connection to try to recruit people into the movement that is Change for Game Studios, that is DINKY TehC and Change for Game Studios. although they would not actually get the message until actually revisiting this podcast on the backside, because I'm was slightly trying to bring the podcast to their attention. DINKY, TehC, and Nature of Love. DINKY, TehC, and the Nature of Love, to be able to just get those words into their minds, into that mind frame, to be able to then develop the seed, to be able to continue to follow up at home, and then therefore Google it, and then hopefully someday tell their friends, and then hopefully have some sort of external, outside, organic, crossover compound, development of just discovery, if you will, of attention to a certain extent, for people to just care about spiritual finance to begin with, and then therefore join, in essence, surreptitiously, the Change for Game Studios movement, the Change for Game Studios mindset, the Change for Game Studios world connection of energy that already exists in essence, but it's a world connection of energy that's trying to make games be played rapidly, rapid games being played around the world, so that energy can then therefore produce philanthropy energy all the time. Philanthropy energy is the focus. So we're sending energy around the world at all given times. So we're circulating energy like cryptocurrency energy, but actually sending it intentionally to different places and spaces around the world for free. Philanthropy energy, giving philanthropy, using and making sacrifices and sacrificing and developing abilities to sacrifice existing habits and processes and such things, like I talked about Ryan Serhant times Caleb Simpson yesterday, doing those types of videos to be able to sell and help people liquidate their lives, to be able to then go on missions, in essence, to a certain degree, missions, and develop and collaboratively connect with the whole world in this movement of energy, in essence, to be able to send it to the 8 billion people around the world. So at all given times, all 8 billion people are looking out for all 8 billion people, and there's somehow an ability to be able to connect on that mindset. And of course, there's going to be little bits of upsets and uproars here and there, and issues here and there, obviously, but in essence, if there's the nature to hone in on the powers that are working with us to be able to figure this out, that is what we're trying to do collectively in this day and age and in this podcast. And so therefore, what we're trying to get at is that we're still trying to make sound and just continuous collaborative energy, but flip-flopping it on its brain, the whole collaboration aspect of music making and such things. Did I already say welcome to the news? Welcome to the news. I'm just kidding, I already said it. But anyways, so the bottom line is that in terms of connecting this foundational fundamental energy, it's just very, it's like finally connecting a spark to this brand, DINKY, TehC, and Change for Game Studios, which is, I don't know, probably going to be pretty much a slow process regardless, and if it even goes anywhere. Honestly, if it goes anywhere, it would be surprising. But it's very difficult to get energy out there. And also, 0 connections have been made. 0 proper connections to be able to pipeline any given promotional energy forward is definitely not necessarily been connected pipeline necessarily from this time. So hopefully going forward, there is a possibility that just any additional people can just care and somehow add to the process and the cause. Who knows, it could be a tarnished brand entirely by the time anybody who's professional enough can get to it to be able to try to assist it along to where they're not, maybe able to rehab it, and it's possible we might have to start a new brand all over again. Who knows, to be able to try to do things correctly, because I pretty much have the ability to tarnish a brand because I'm just kind of spouting off at the mouth, and I could be just annoying people. Obviously, that's a big possibility, especially doing the news every single day. Who knows, but the purpose is to not do that. The purpose is to try to spout spiritual finance. The purpose is to try to spout collective energy, to develop collective philanthropic energy, to develop philanthropic energy for all people to be able to benefit from everyone else's energy in the world. Similar to AI, honestly, because that is, in essence, energy that's all working together to be able to try to benefit everyone. In essence, that's the purpose, but it has to get to everybody in the world, actually, for everybody to benefit and people to be able to have basic needs like water and food first. And that's a big deal. That's like the things that are the basic necessities first. That's really kind of what we're actually fighting for DINKY, TehC, and Change for Game Studios as a company, as a brand. We're trying to get everybody in the world on the global philanthropy energy grid, which means we all are able to exist and have basic needs and not have any starvation happen any given places in the world. And there's an ability for all countries and all people to be able to look out for every other people in the world, similar to the way that a lot of people in a lot of cities govern themselves in many ways, just by the nature of the way that the flow of energy kind of goes. It really is that way, because after all, there's not always enough strong support in the background to be able to cover things if there was an uproar somehow. After all, regardless, much of the time, oftentimes. So nonetheless, it's necessary to have systems and structures in place, absolutely, obviously, but necessary. But in addition, there is a different kind of language that is formed between, after all, between all human beings, like music. Business music is something that is it's like a different kind of language. And like talking to over the last 2 years, I've been talking to people about like financial assets and such things outside on the streets. So that's like spiritual finance, but that's actually just kind of like straight finance. Obviously, it's like it's finance related, finance tools, like a list of finance tools over the years when I've been walking around talking to people. So it's kind of like practice for today, I guess you could say. You could say that, absolutely. But it's like surreptitious practice because there's a cryptocurrency that's supposed to just go up in price like 2 years ago that I heard about. And so it's just kind of like I felt like an obligation because the systematization of money and monetary energy was possible. So it felt like an obligation, a moral obligation to start to tell people just about that basic asset, just in passing, just if necessary, because it's so cheap and still is in the meantime. GENI.app is the one, in essence, that I've mentioned a long time in the past. And you know what? That could fail. That could flop. That could be a big no-no issue. That after all, it could not work out after all. But it's so cheap that it's like a matter of like bringing financial education through the essence of just trying something brand new. And that's the nature of spiritual finance in essence as well. Is just because they spent 5 cents on a cryptocurrency, they also get the idea and the ability and the conceptual attempt to be able to participate in investing, which is something that had never been done before by many people that I talked to in the past. And as a result, they then therefore get to ride that wave even with 5 cents, because you literally can invest 5 cents. You can invest 5 cents into GENI.app in essence. And like that's the one that I followed for a long time and was somewhat part of the community. And as a result, it's supposed to just go up in price in essence when phase 3 is supposed to start, which is supposed to start this summer. So I have been mentioning it ongoing. But that little backdrop of random information that was birthed 2 years ago happened to be fast forwarded up to today. In essence, more or less, because all of that time and energy speaking to people has finally come full circle today to actually relate to my own brand, which is just being worked on in the background while every day I've been talking to other people about financial tools and such things that I've come across that I found interesting or helpful. But today was the only day that it came full circle to be able to relate to Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios because of talking to people outside on the street about the podcast Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios. And I don't know who the other viewers are, if any, on this podcast before today, beyond that, based on not having any organic outreach beyond that, except slight social media stuff and posts, which has very little traction to begin with, because that in of itself has not been promoted or done very well or kept in line or kept on track, because the primary focus has been trying to build energy in the background to be able to try to build just some kind of brand someday, which has to do with building up upon myself to be able to try to push forward that brand and such things. But realistically, in reality, just like anything else, other tools are necessary still to be able to push things forward. And so we're still trying to connect every day to new networks and new networking and new pipelines of energy. That is the main essence and interest and incentive for developing this podcast as well. Every day, in essence, every day, to be able to promote more action to be able to take place, to be able to remind myself and keep myself accountable and have consistent additional tools hopefully come out of the woodwork and pop up out of the woodwork. Just like to be able to try to, it's like reverberation in essence. Like there's like this obligation, like to a degree, because this podcast is happening, like to, in essence, like try to eventually, ultimately, as opposed to just spouting to myself into a microphone in essence and posting it online, but actually engaging with the people that I've been speaking about for the last whatever amount of episodes that I've done this podcast for, to be able to get people to engage in the content and the nature of the hope, of the interest, of the feelings that correspond and have gone with all of the messages in all the previous episodes before today. In essence, like people just being able to rally together and work using games, and making change through games, change for games, and changing for games, and putting change, like even little bit of change into games, and playing games that have the ability to influence philanthropy around the world. And also just trying to like connect with the whole mentality of like Soho, and like the essence of NYC, and the essence of Central Park, and the essence of the places that have been a foundation for me for many years before today, just hopefully trying to add to that process, in essence, like to a certain extent, to where the culture and the vibrations are trying to add into what today was, I guess you could say, but we're trying to add upon that and more to that, because the electricity was touched today, and that's great. So we touched a little bit, but realistically it's really compound efforts and compound networking and compound networks and network effects that are necessary between other existing vendors that can continue to try to push our brand through their pipelines, in essence, in the longer term element. But realistically, the music is kind of a big deal, I think, even though there's so many AI tools out there that can make music these days, and it's very much going to make a difficult process and a difficult pipeline to make forward motion in any given respect. But realistically, like we'll just try to play it out and keep you posted and keep you abreast. The rest, yeah. So and that's part of what's been going on in essence. But regardless, having the feeling to be able to connect with the things that have been being said through action, through actionably telling people about it on the street, through telling them about Change for Game Studios just slightly, just a little bit today, and connecting hopefully that idea of trying to develop verbally the movement by verbally explaining the movement, just by explaining that this podcast exists, is hopefully the electricity that was connected today, in essence, in that respect. By mentioning the podcast, all of the electricity that's in past episodes, in essence, regarding global change, conceptual potential, that is packed, hopefully, within all of the past episodes, based around changing for games around the whole world, and collectively working together, being the spark that it was able to connect together, trying to develop agency by introducing the nature of this podcast and the nature of love through the nature of this podcast to all new people that actually hear about it, to be able to create that spark, to be able to make that obligation and that feeling for them to indirectly want to be able to become involved in this movement that is changing for games, and all the things that I've been ranting about and ultimately preaching about, trying to preach about in terms of developing this spiritual finance methodology, which helps people become happier, I hope to think, and have more insights into marketing and trying new ventures, and also developing like happiness that corresponds to and correlates to more trying in the way of entrepreneurship and trying more sales, trying more investing, trying more of all of these things in inspiration sense, because of like free time, knowing that there's this communal energy around the whole world that is supportive in a collaborative sense, that is supporting them behind them, because the nature of the collaborative energy is working towards the greater good of humanity after all. And they are playing this global game for change by conceptually acknowledging a conceptual transformer suit that's in their closet already in the back of their mind, and they just have to activate that alter ego, because that's what it's there for. All the things that they've ever wanted to do and be, in essence, it's like packed in to the transformer suit that is their entrepreneurship transformer suit, regardless, to be able to help them play the global games for change. And there's plates attached to all those pieces of their entrepreneurship suit that are all the little different separate businesses that and pipelines of value that they can add to the world by just developing an essence for collaboration, an acknowledgement for collaboration, and using these plates as reminders of little logos for all of the collaboration value packages that they are able to develop and continue to expand and expert and spray out onto the world like seeds. Spray them out onto the world like seeds. That's what all the suits, all the transformer suits are designed to do. That's what they're all there to do in essence in entrepreneurship world, is spray seeds of hope, spray seeds of value, and spray seeds of new innovation all around the world, all the time, by people, by AI, by consistent giving, especially through philanthropy energy and the global philanthropy energy grid. That is the main bottom line and purpose indeed. So moving from that down, a way to be able to try to make friends or whatever, like customers that are friends at the same time, I guess you could say, is a little bit of a funnel that starts basically by every entrepreneur, because every entrepreneur, everybody has the ability to have that alter ego or that dream, I guess, that, Simon Squibb references, but like a dream or an aspiration to do something, like if they work somewhere, for example, to have their own kind of business of any kind that they would want to do. And so, for example, that transformer suit is their ability to be able to envision and be a part of that reality just by wearing that mental transformer suit. And so therefore, basically, a way to make a customer a friend basically is to basically you have to make content like this is content. Okay, so that's step one, is making content, and then going out. And so step one is obviously telling people about the content in life. But this is a methodology, this is a random thing, this is a random thought, a random way to make customers and friends at the same time. But basically, like customers into friends, I guess you could say. I don't know, if your obviously brand is, that's the intention. And if nothing else, just friends. Okay, just friends. If nothing else, necessarily, it's one or the other or both, perhaps. But so the funnel is basically you walk up to them, tell them about your content, and then they say, okay, and if they pass the test of step number 1, cool, there's 4 steps, and then the 5th step is they become your friend. If they pass all the steps, if they pass your criteria for becoming your friend, this is the criteria. Step 1, you tell them about the content. If they pass, they say, oh, okay, I'll check it out. Then step 2 is you give them a little bit of value, like a company. Just give them a little something actionable, in essence, like a company that's correlated to, like, for example, spiritual finance. There's like something called unbrokeninvesting.com and creditstacking.com. I mentioned to people in passing and such things, and those things basically have value, in essence, in life and such things. And so that's kind of cool, I guess you could say. And then the 3rd step is they say thanks, I guess, for some random value. It's like you don't necessarily have to give them something necessarily. You can give them an additional tool in life because it's value. You're just giving them value. So if you direct them to additional value, it doesn't mean you have to necessarily pay for it. You just are giving them, you can find free value on the internet. It can be a variety of things. So you give them value, step number 2. That's thanks for listening to step number 1, which is your content. Check it out. If they say cool, that means they liked the value of step number 1 anyway, but you give them a bonus in step number 2. Step number 3 is you offer to be their accountability coach to support them in life for the future of whatever they want to do as an entrepreneur, in essence. So you're basically able to do that in step number 3. You offer to be their accountability coach, which basically means their friend, because those are the kind of friends anyways that you want to have reciprocal energy with anyways. Those are the type of people you want to keep in contact and communication with anyway. So you're basically offering to be their accountability coach by just connecting with them, in essence, getting their email, getting them on your email newsletter, signing them up, in essence, for your process. You are being their accountability coach to a certain extent. And if you make yourself actually available because you met face-to-face, by your actual phone number, by them being able to text you, obviously within a reasonable doubt, you hope to grow out of that phase eventually, but I mean for a while, to just literally have people try to become your consumers, your friends at the same time, by offering your contact information and having that ability to have that open contact necessarily to be able to support them in their accountability, and also you get their contact so that hopefully you can follow up with them as well on some kind of consistent basis to follow up with their accountability of how their process is going, and offering that basic accountability in essence. And then on the back end of that, if they're really fans, if they're really super fans, then you can direct them to an online store where they can actually buy some clothing or some merchandise from that engagement and interaction, so you can actually try to conceptually capitalize and them conceptually be a consumer or a customer in that same interaction, in essence. So that is the hope that they get to step number 5, which is you just say, okay, at least I told you what my clothing website is now, and we've gotten through those step numbers 1 through 4. In essence, you sat around, you stayed here, you didn't walk away, you gave me your time, you gave me that much time. We had this little bit of exchange of energy, etc., if you will. Thank you for your time. And then at the very end, you say, and now we're friends. And now we're friends because you gave me that much. You gave me that much time, and you don't even know me. You're just a complete stranger, and we just connected in that variety, in that aspect. We had all these back and forths of energy frequency exchanges and such things. So now shake hands. Now air. You can either do it in the air if they don't want to touch hands based on whatever reason, or you can shake actual hands, or you can air. Do it in the air handshake, in other words, or air fist bump or something to that effect, or just actually fist bump, and then you're friends, and then you have to call it out, say, okay, now we're friends, and such things, and then it's official because you sealed it with the friends call. Anyway, it's just kind of a concept on a whim of a little funnel for friendship customers situation. So that's a little bit of the side note, I suppose you could say. Yeah, chaotic music, which is what we started the podcast with, is chaotic music concepts. We're still trying to chase those, trying to find depths, sounds in the depths of the earth, of the strangest ways to be able to combine and collaborate business music energy for the future, to be able to continue to try to make continuous crazy music, to hopefully get out into the world, and as well crazy clothing as well, to be able to add to hopefully some stage presence, hopefully some DJ presence, hopefully in the future to be able to continue to try to promote the DINKY Tech and Change for Game Studios brand and such things. Furthermore, thanks again, DINKY Tech. Bye, peace, bye.